Good evening. My name is Christopher Allen, and this is a presentation on human trafficking for my Management 286 Business Communications class, prepared for Professor Turner. My name is Christopher H. Allen, and it is December 11th, 2014. To give you a little bit about my background, I worked in law enforcement for almost 7 years here at Greene County, working at the jail as a corrections officer. I got a lot of experience in the criminal mind while I worked there, and a lot of experience with kind of what goes on with our area in regards to trafficking, which is limited, but with Interstate 44 nearby, we do see a lot of activity. I've also been involved with some volunteer work with a local group called Stand Against Trafficking, and I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. I have not been able to be as active with them as I would like. I'm going to start being more active thanks to a recent job change that gave me a new schedule to where I actually have weekends off and evenings. Just to kind of give you an idea about trafficking and how it's affected us in the 21st century, human trafficking has become a global epidemic in the 21st century. Slavery still exists and is one of the fastest growing criminal activities at home and abroad. Men, women, and children are all trafficked for various purposes all over the world, and they are passing through Springfield, and there are definitely some signs that would indicate that we do have some trafficking occurring here in Springfield. Trafficking is defined as recruiting, harboring, or transporting a person through force, coercion, or fraud for the purposes of involuntary servitude, debt, bondage, or slavery. This occurs all over the world and is rampant in the United States. Another definition I'm going to give you is the definition of globalization. Globalization is defined as the development of an increasingly integrated global economy marked especially by free trade, free flow of capital, and the tapping of cheaper foreign labor markets. And that's from Merriam-Webster. The reason I give both those definitions is because trafficking and globalization go hand in hand. Now, while our market is globalizing, and it gives us access to newer markets around the world, and with the advent of the internet, things are easier. It actually makes it easier for criminal activity to occur across borders, and that's why trafficking goes along with globalization, because actually they kind of go hand in hand. Who are the victims of trafficking? Well, the victims of trafficking can be anyone at any time. We see a lot more trafficking in poor countries because they're fertile grounds for exploitation, and as a result they have a lot higher trafficking rates. It's estimated that the industry earns about $12 billion a year, and as of 2007, one trafficked woman can earn up to $67,000 for her trafficker within 1 year. It isn't surprising that this has become a lucrative enterprise, and since it is slave labor, they don't pay them any wages. It's actually estimated that about 50,000 women and children are trafficked into the U.S. each year to work as prostitutes, and that the average age is a horrifying 12 to 14 years old. The types of children who end up in this situation are often runaways who were fleeing from physical and sexual abuse at home. When it comes to domestic trafficking, which is the trafficking within our borders, it is defined as the trafficking of individuals, regardless of citizenship or nationality, within the borders of the United States. Now, it's a little hard to understand the idea behind trafficking someone from one place to another within the United States, but that actually occurs quite often and is definitely an epidemic here in the United States. A lot of people talk about legalizing prostitution in several states, and I think in certain states it has, including Nevada, and I know that Minnesota had attempted it at one point. If something like that occurs, what you're basically doing is you're legalizing pimps, and then you're allowing them to prey on younger individuals for the purposes of commerce. And if we were to foster that type of behavior or pass legislation that would legalize prostitution, you would be creating a safe haven for the avenues by which children will be exploited by pimps, pornographers, and various other predators. The perpetrators of trafficking will use any means necessary to gain the trust of a person quickly. Of the children who run away from home, a third of them will be approached by a predator within 48 hours. The traffickers look for people that are looking for a better life or for better employment, and they offer them the help they think they need. The traffickers turn out to be well organized and connected to people in both police and government, and this is all occurring right under our noses. The traffickers will find someone who might not be in the best situation in the country they're living in, and they'll promise them a job, and then they'll give them the airfare to go to the United States or wherever their end destination is. And when they get there, they find out that they're actually in bondage because they end up having to pay back the amount of money that was paid for their airfare, plus some interest, which tends to be indefinite to where they end up never being able to pay the debt off. What is some of the legislation that's passed in the United States? The Mann Act of 1910 was the first legislation that passed to criminalize prostitution. It criminalized prostitution based on the morality of the act itself. So basically saying that prostitution is an immoral act, and so that makes it illegal. This law ended up punishing the prostitutes and did nothing to the traffickers. So we still see a lot of problems where we have women or children that have been trafficked and acting as prostitutes, and when they see the police or they come in contact with the police, they end up getting arrested as prostitutes when actually they're kind of the result of the problem and they're the ones that are being victimized. The second act that occurred was in 2000. It's called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. This law provided for victims to recover for damages of trafficking in a civil suit. It has been amended many times, and it falls short in the prosecution of the person paying for the sex act. So once again, it doesn't really actually try to prevent crime by putting in the individuals that propagate trafficking or prostitution into prison. It just punishes the people committing the act of prostitution itself. The PROTECT Act is the newest act that has been passed as recent as 2011. This act increases the sentence lengths for prosecuted traffickers and eliminates the statute of limitations. Now, what the statute of limitations means is that if someone were to commit a crime, a sexual crime or a crime involving trafficking, in the past, if it had been over a certain amount of years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, they couldn't be prosecuted. It had to be prosecuted within a certain amount of time. The greater severity of the law tends to lengthen the time of the statute of limitations. For instance, murder has no statute of limitations, so if someone were to murder somebody 30 years from now, or 30 years ago, they could definitely be prosecuted for that act today, and we have seen that happen. As far as you go further down in severity in crimes, you see the statute of limitations get less and less and less. Obviously, we're not going to prosecute somebody for a marijuana charge from 1976. It wouldn't be feasible, and it would be a waste of money. But since people are realizing that trafficking is a little bit more serious, we're starting to see the statute of limitations being increased for traffickers themselves, which is what needs to occur. This act also provides a powerful tool for law enforcement, including the use of wiretaps in aid of prosecution. It has powerful laws protecting international children, but we're still not seeing anything in this law that does anything for domestic trafficking across state borders. To conclude, the globalization of the world will continue, and we will see more crimes against women and children as a result. As a nation and as states in the Union, we must open our eyes to this type of crime and see that we cannot stand by while it occurs out of sight and out of mind. Providing the facts about trafficking will hopefully create an awareness that causes some to take action. Go ahead and contact your congressman or make a petition for legislation and become informed. The number one problem with trafficking is that most people don't understand what it truly means, and they also don't understand how rampant it has become within the United States and globally. I think if some of these facts were shown to people, we would see a lot more public outcry to pass better legislation to prevent the victimization of these women and children, and see them return to their homes or return into society and gain fully employed. I'd like to thank you for listening to this description of trafficking, foreign and domestic, and thank you.